All right, this video is going to cover the first part of trigonometry when we're looking for a missing side of a triangle. We learned that when we're looking for a missing side of a triangle, we can use Pythagorean theorem by using the other two sides. Well, in this case, we're only going to be given one side, so we're going to use our trigonometry. These essential words are extremely important so you understand what we're talking about, as well as at our school with our quizzes and our tests, you're going to have vocabulary. Angle of perspective, very important. Theta, very important. They're all important. You're going to have to be able to identify the hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent sides of these triangles. Okay? We're also going to have the line of sight. You need to know where that is. And your angle of elevation, depression. These three will be covered in a later video. Inverse trigonometry will be covered in the next video. So the other thing we want to look at the bottom, we have the SOHCAHTOA. This is a phrase that has been used forever to help us remember our three different trigonometric functions. The other thing I have here is your Desmos scientific calculator. I had my students, I asked them if they were here the first day of the semester to download this on their phone. This is the calculator you will use at home. If you're unable to download, make sure you type in all three of those words exactly. If you're unable to download it on your phone for some reason, then you can go to a laptop, Chromebook, an iPad, whatever, and you can go to Google or whatever search engine, type these three words in and use it there. This is what the app will look like on the phone. It's going to have the cube root of 27. It's going to have a green background and say scientific. That's the one you're going to want to download. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the first part of our trigonometry. Looking at the functions, we have sine, cosine, and tangent. This is not sin, cos, and tan. It's sine, cosine, and tangent. Before we even begin, the very, very top of this, you need to see we have to have our calculators in degree mode. If they are not in degree mode, you will get the wrong answer, I guarantee. On the calculators at school, your calculator will automatically set to, sorry, mine was already in degree mode. Your calculator will automatically be set to radians. If the calculator has been cleared, you're going to have, at the end of my tests and quizzes, students have to clear the calculators. It goes back to radian. If it hasn't been cleared since the last person used it with degree, it'll be there. But every time you open this up, you need to check that. If it says radians, you're going to use this little keypad here, and you're going to scroll up here. When you hover, it says radian. All you do is click on it. It's the easiest way to do it when it works. Here we go. Let's try this again. And of course, it's not working for me. All right, let's just try clicking the center button. There we go. Now we're in degree mode. It has to say DEG up there. When we're looking at the first section here, all we're going to do is we're going to get to the sine function, and we're going to type in the 53 degrees. Your trig button is down here next to the 7. You press that, and you're going to have a series of 12 different functions show up. We will only be focusing in this class on the left 6 right here. This lesson is only going to be the top 3, sine, cosine, and tangent. So we click the trig button, we press enter, and then we just type in 53, enter. We do want to round to the nearest tenth, and so this will be 0.8 or 0.8. On the app or online, your trig function, sine, cosine, tangent, are just right here. You don't have to press a trig button or anything. So here, you would just simply press the sine and then type in the 53. And with the phones, it's kind of tiny. And then your answer is going to pop up already. You don't even have to press enter or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and press it so I can do the next problem. And there's your 0.8. When you're looking at the cosine of 53, I'll go ahead and use the phone first. You're going to type in cosine 53, and you're going to find out that it is 0.6. The calculator at school, trig function, or trig button, you're going to scroll over here, click over it, and then press enter, and then type in that 53 to get that 0.6. Tangent, go back to that trig button next to the 7, scroll over to tangent, press enter, type in the 53, we get 1.3. You're going to notice that we are finding the same, it was going to be the same exact angle measurement of 53 degrees, but we're doing a different function because each function does something, your calculator is doing something different to that number. Now, let's take a look at the angle of perspective. Your angle of perspective is it's called theta. It's this little Greek symbol. You need to know when you see that, that is your angle of perspective. You need to know that symbol. It's going to let you know which side is going to be your opposite side, which side is going to be your adjacent side. We need to remember that adjacent means next to. Opposite's pretty clear. It's on the opposite side of the triangle. Adjacent is next to. So we're going to take a look here, and down here, how to label the right triangles is I'm just going to be telling you as we go through this. The hypotenuse will never change locations no matter where where theta is. Your hypotenuse is always across from that 90-degree angle. So with both of these, we're just going to be changing where theta is, but both of these will have the hypotenuse right here. Now with your angle of perspective, depending on where you're standing, right here, your angle of perspective is right here at angle C. Your opposite is on the opposite side of the triangle over here. You will later see me writing OPP for opposite. Sitting at that theta, you're adjacent right next to, just turn and it's right here. And you'll be seeing me write ADJ for adjacent. When we change where the angle of perspective is, where theta is, over here to angle A, now our opposite is right here. Or your OPP, I'll be calling it later. Sitting back there, right next, turn right next to you is going to be the adjacent. Okay, we need to know these so we know how to set up our equations to solve. The top here, you're now going to see how we set up the ratios. And this is where SOHCAHTOA comes from. Your sine, you're going to use the opposite side over the hypotenuse, giving us SO. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and here are your abbreviations, CA. Tangent will be opposite over adjacent, TOA. Tangent is the one that does not use the hypotenuse at all. The other two do. So right here, we're going to write these ratios in simplest form. We're going to be changing, we're going to do all three functions with both of our angles of perspective. One thing I did forget to mention over here, you will never, ever, ever use the right angle as an angle of perspective. It's always going to be one of the other two acute angles. So looking at, we're going to first sit here, and I'm using something that's erasable. I always suggest that my students do these little arcs on the on our angle of perspective so we know where we're standing. With the sine of A, that means angle A. That's what goes in these parentheses. So sitting at A, we want to do the sine was opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to go to the opposite side, 8, over your hypotenuse that's crossing the 90-degree angle, 17. And this is simplified. When we go to the cosine, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So now sitting at A, we're going to go right next door to 15 over that hypotenuse of 17. Tangent, TOA, is opposite over adjacent. You're going to sit at angle A, you're going to go the opposite first, so 8 is in the numerator. And then your adjacent right next door, 15. Now let's go ahead and change our angle of perspective. Let's go look at angle C. We're sitting right here. Again, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Sitting here, your opposite is now 15 over the hypotenuse of 17. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. Sitting at C, you're adjacent right next to it, 8 over your hypotenuse of 17. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. Sitting here, opposite, 15 over adjacent right next to it, 8. So now let's talk about how we set these up. Now that we have the ratio, let's look at how we're going to set them up, and then also how we're going to solve these. As we set these up, the first thing we want to pay attention to is our angle of perspective. Now we don't have theta because we have an angle. So we're going to be sitting right here where the 41 degrees is. Look at what information they gave you and what we want to look for. What we need to see here is we have information for the opposite side, we have an X, and the adjacent. And what I tell students is just label the two sides that we're using. Don't worry about labeling all three. That way you're not looking at, now we know exactly which two letters we're using. And we look at O and A up here, we're going to see it in TOA. We will be using tangent. So how we set this up is we go ahead and write tangent abbreviated. We're going to place that angle measurement in the parentheses and write equal. On the other side of the equal sign is where we're writing these ratios here. We want our, and I always have students also in here with tangent, writing this so we know exactly which letters to put where, fill in the formula, so to speak. In our ratio, we went opposite, x, over adjacent, which is the 15. I'm going to show you the full-on way of doing this proportionally, and then we can talk about a little shortcut if you don't want to show it completely proportionally. If we set this over 1, we can now cross multiply. When we cross multiply, x times 1 will give us x equals. When we cross multiply this, please put the 15 first. I don't want you to accidentally put the 15 inside the parentheses. So we're going to place that 15 first, times, okay, and then we'll have, just write in, tangent of 41. And now all you have to do is plug that into the calculator. Our school calculators here, we're going to write it exactly as we see it. We're going to type in 15 first. Then we will go to this trig button. We're using tangent. Make sure you're using the correct one. Also make sure you're in degree mode. Press enter. And now we want to put just 41. Press enter. And we're going to get this. We're going to go ahead and round to, it doesn't tell us what to round to, my answer key. I rounded to the nearest hundredths. So we'll go ahead and round to the nearest hundredths of 13.04. And so you're going to see me write these little squigglies. This means approximately because we are rounding. So we have 13.04. On the calculators, on the phone or the computer, this is what we do. We're going to go ahead and still type in that 15 first, press the tangent button, and then type in that 41. And there's our 13.4, if I can get that glare out of the way. Okay? Let's take a look at number 2. Here is our angle of perspective. Which sides are we dealing with? Well, right now I'm looking, hey, I've got the hypotenuse. I always check the hypotenuse first. Okay, here I've got the hypotenuse. Sitting at the angle of perspective, we're going across the triangle to the opposite side. You're using the opposite and the hypotenuse is so for sine. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to come up here because we're going to have a bit of work to show down here with this one. We're going to fill in the sine of that angle measurement, 27, equal to, now we're going to set up the ratio, opposite, 25, over hypotenuse, x. If we do the exact same thing of setting this over 1 to do our proportions, let's see what we get here. When we cross multiply this, we're going, and it doesn't matter if the x goes first or last in this one because we're not putting that in the calculator. We're going to have the sine of 27x equals, and this cross product is just 25. We have to solve for x just like if this said 7x. We'd have to divide by the 7. We have to divide by whatever is in front of the x. So we're going to divide both sides by the sine of 27. Canceling this side, giving us x. We're going to have an approximate. Now with this, all you have to do for your calculator is, making sure you're in degree mode, right? I use the control divide function. Okay, your control divide, you're going to get a fraction function, or you can just type in 25 divided by. I'm going to type 25 in the numerator, scroll down, go to my trig function button, and press enter because it's already on sine. Type in the 27, you're going to see it looks exactly the same. We press enter, and we find out our answer round to the nearest hundredth is approximately 55.07. On the phones or the computer, we have here, you don't even have to press a control or divide or anything. Over here, you're going to see an A over B. That's the fraction function right there. Type 25 in the numerator. This one, we're going to have to kind of tap on the screen into the denominator. Then you press your sign of, what is it, 27, and there's your 55.7. Next, your angle of perspective, right here. I'm seeing I am using my hypotenuse on this one. And then with this, we're also going to use the opposite side. And O and H, opposite and hypotenuse, is going to be the sine function. So here we'll go ahead and set it up like we did. We're going to start off with sine of the angle. So we have sine of 59 equals, now let's set up a ratio, opposite x over hypotenuse, 16. I'm going to show you the shortcut here, okay? Please use the proportion I did on number 1 if this does not make sense to you. What ends up happening when we set this over 1, all we're going to end up doing is cross multiplying right here. So if we have that in the, if we've got x in the numerator, all you need to do is multiply these two. So then x, when we plug into the calculator, putting that 16 first, 16 times the sine of 59. Again, seeing it in the calculator with our trig function, pressing the trig button, we will take, oh, sorry, not yet. We're going to type in the 16 first, then press the trig button to get our sine of 59. Press enter. Round to the nearest hundredth. This will be 13.71, 13 71 hundredths. For the phone or computer here. Okay, typing that back in, we got 16 sine of 59. And there we have it. Next problem, angle of perspective right here at 49. I'm seeing I am not using the hypotenuse. So automatically I know that I'm using tangent or TOA. So let's label our opposite and our adjacent. We'll go ahead and set up the tangent of the angle measurement, 49. This will be equal to the ratio of opposite, 9, over adjacent, x. The shortcut with this, because this one especially because it worked out really, really long right here, please do the proportion exactly like I did on number 2 if you need to. What ends up happening here is in the end, if x is in the denominator, we're going to divide. What we're doing is we're going to be switching and dividing. So x is going to move over here to the left, and then that tangent of 49 is going to move in onto the right in the denominator. So then, again, we can plug this into the calculator. I'm going to go ahead and use my control divide to get my fraction function. We have 9 in the numerator. Scroll down. I'm going to go to my trig button next to the 7. We are using tangent, so I'm going to scroll over to tangent and type in that 49, the angle measurement. Rounded to the nearest hundredth, we have 7.82, 7 and 82 hundredths. I'm going to show you again with the phone. Remember which side to put it on. I'm going to go to that A over B. I'm going to type that 9 in the numerator, tap on the denominator on the screen, go to tangent of 49. Oops, 49. There we go. All right, last two. Looking at number 5, angle of perspective right here, I'm seeing I am using my hypotenuse, so we're either using sine or cosine. We look at where our angle of perspective is. We're going right next to the angle for our adjacent. This will be cosine of adjacent over hypotenuse. So fill in cosine of the angle 49 equal to adjacent 9 over hypotenuse x. This will be another one that we can just do our switch and divide. X is where? Denominator divide. This is just your shortcut. So x will come over here, and then the cosine of 49 will replace it in the denominator underneath the 9. Again, showing you with the calculator. I'm going to do my control divide fraction function, 9 in the top. Going to press that trig button, scroll over to cosine, press enter, and then type in the 49, enter. And we have 13.72 with our rounded to the nearest hundredth. So x is approximately 13 and 72 hundredths. I'm going to go ahead and not worry about the phone this time. Next and last, here's our angle of perspective. And I'm seeing I am using my hypotenuse again. And I'm going adjacent next to. So again, adjacent hypotenuse will be the cosine. And now we will go ahead and get our equation set up. The cosine of the angle measurement of 49 is equal to adjacent x over hypotenuse 9. The shortcut is, if it's in the numerator, multiply. N and M are right next to each other in the alphabet. It's kind of remember, where is x? Numerator, multiply. Denominator, we're switching and dividing. So here we're just going to multiply this, so we'd have x equals, listing at 9 first, 9 times the cosine of 49. X will be approximately, bring back that calculator. We're going to be taking the 9 first, and then we press the trig button, scroll over to cosine, type in our angle measure at 49, and we're going to round to the nearest hundredth. This is going to be approximately 5.90. Now these last three, I want you guys to notice I have the exact same angle of perspective, the exact same triangle here, sort of. We have the same angle measurement, where the angle is in the same place, and we're using the same numbers as 9 and x. But based on which sides we're using are going to change which function we use, and it will also change the number that it comes out to, that it solves that measurement. Okay, you can search other trigonometry videos. Ask your teacher if you have any questions.